Our theme today, Wide Horizons, Open Minds. I have this image of my mind as sort of a closet that's full of thoughts and memories and ideas, and that somehow as I grew up and matured, my closet got organized in a certain way, and I became a rational human being. And now I take in information in a way that really makes sense so that I can draw conclusions that are valid and well thought. Then I read this book, Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And he steps forward basically to say, nope, it's not how it works. Kahneman describes fast thinking as when we just sort of react to something that happens. So we haven't dug deep, we just have a reaction. And then he talks about our slow thinking, which is sort of when we sit down to consider something. And that thinking is really biased by our fast thinking. He kind of covers a lot of the topics covered by Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. But Kahneman is a Nobel laureate in economics. And I'll be honest in saying that I think he is probably a more reliable reporter, and I think he might be a more trustworthy analyst. When I started this book, given his credentials, I was thinking, could be a little bit dry. I might need a little bit of milk with these cornflakes. But this book is really compelling. With every chapter that I read, I could feel my brain filling up, and I knew I needed a rest, but I just wanted to keep reading. He covers things we would kind of expect, sort of like confirmation bias. He talks about how images of money influence our thinking and our behavior, even if we weren't aware that we just saw an image of money. He talks about how we often overestimate our own abilities to think. As I read this, I sort of had this image of Kahneman in my home, pulling back my scalp and looking in my brain. And I kept thinking, maybe, hopefully, I'm becoming a better thinker for having read Thinking Fast and Slow. It helped me to see the patterns in my own thinking. And one of my favorite things that Kahneman does is often he sort of steps up and says, reader, you too will be influenced by images of money. You too will be influenced by confirmation bias. But in knowing that, we do become better thinkers, because I still think about my mind as a closet. I want it to be organized. I want to think that I'm a rational person who is the master of my own thoughts. I know that Kahneman will argue with me on that point, but I feel like having read this and considered the information that he has shared with me, and frankly, having enjoyed this book immensely. Any of my friends who are in the audience will say, I wish you'd stop talking about it, but I can't stop talking about it. This is information that we can use. This is information that helps us maybe not just organize the closet, but it helps us expand the closet. And it helps us think about maybe what we need to go in and to do is toss everything in that closet on the floor and rework it. I'm reflecting on what Kara has said, on what Mark has said, on what Tiffany has said this morning, and I'm thinking that surely there is a way that we will be the master of our thoughts. The book is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. Thank you.
Good job.
I know that a lot of you are thinking, please don't keep dancing. And I am done. And I hope that actually you all will go home tonight and read a book, frankly. And I am wondering if it might be this book, The Emperor of All Maladies by Siddhartha Mukherjee. What I want to say about this book is a librarian's dilemma. I know this is a very good book. I know that when I say its subtitle is The Biography of Cancer, several of you are thinking, fat chance. Dr. Mukherjee set out to write this book as a memoir of his year of residency, immersing himself in the treatment of cancer. He realized as he began to do that that he couldn't do it without kind of going back to what did we originally know about cancer way back when? How did our knowledge of cancer grow? How did we begin to treat it? And maybe what do we know now? He had to include all of that in the story of cancer. Now here's a theme that seems to be developing. In telling the story, he has to weave all this information in without losing the sense of the story. And when I reflect on our speakers today, that's what they're all doing for us. They're like telling the story where they're weaving in all of this, and yet it continues moving. And that's what he does so well. As I read this book, during my workday, I would kind of think about what's coming up in the evening so that I could return to this book. On weekends, I gave up a lot of household work so I could return to this book. He does this so well. So he doesn't make things simple. It's not like he takes what's complicated and makes it be something else, but he does pull out the trends. So he talks about what did it mean when doctors honestly thought that surgery, cutting it all out, was the only option for cancer. Then how did that change when doctors thought, no, it's chemotherapy. It might kill the patient, but it's going to get the cancer was the way to go. And then to me, the most interesting question, what were the conditions when breakthroughs were made? I love that stuff. And as I reflect on this book, I think of how he talks about information being gathered, knowledge growing, and then again, that condition when what I think we might call a cognitive creative spark, I think that's called an idea. When did that happen? When I think of what we're doing today, I think of exactly that. We're pulling together information, we're growing in knowledge, and we're setting up this condition where I can feel it in the room, the creative, cognitive spark, the idea is kindled. I hope that this evening for you includes a book and a conversation about a book. This book is The Emperor of All Maladies.
I'm sorry. I've lost my phone. Pat, did you pick it up? And I have my notes for the next section on it. Sorry, guys. We got to just hold on for a sec. Did you put it in your...
It's by Siddhartha.
Oh, wait a minute. Is it back there?
This is my phone.
Oh, no, I heard something back there. Could you guys stand up in the back there and look? Oh, wait a minute. I think I heard it over there. Could you guys stand up here and look under? I'm serious. Look under your... Wait a minute. Is it in the middle? Could you see it? Wait a minute. What is going on? I don't know. Okay, you asked for surprises.
And now to my final book review. Destiny of the Republic, a tale of madness, medicine, and the murder of a president. Here's a thought exercise that I like to do from time to time. I like to think, what will people 150 years from now think when they look back on us? Like, what is it that's going to be obvious to them that we can't see? In this book, Candice Millard takes a look at around 1880 when President James Garfield was shot by an assassin. So she sort of begins by describing Garfield's rise from rural poverty to the presidency of the United States, as well as the descent of his assassin into mental illness and this obsession to murder the president. Something that we can see now that they couldn't see then was that in 1880, doctors were just learning about antiseptic medicine. And the doctors who treated President Garfield as soon as he was shot put their unwashed hands into his wound and introduced the infection that killed him months later. Now, some European doctors were beginning to introduce the concepts of cleanliness and the difference that cleanliness made in treating illness, but that hadn't come into common use by American doctors. It seems unbelievable. I mean, it seems crazy to us that that would have been true at that time. But what Candace Millard does so well in this book is she sets the context of the time. They were doing the best they could with what they knew then. She helps us to think, what was it like in 1881? What did people know? What was it like that they just came out of a national civil war? What was it like that their president had been shot? What was it like at that time when you think of the incredible inventions that were beginning to be done by people like Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell, who actually has a role in this book? Many of you may be aware that this is the choice of the One Book, One Lincoln program this year. So I'm hoping that many of you will choose to read this book. And in fact, I'm hoping that you will check out a library copy of this book and that you will join our community's conversation that gets started with Destiny of the Republic, because it's not just about this book. It's about how do we share it, and how does this book become something way bigger because we all end up talking to each other about it. I would like to think that the people who write about us in another 130, 140, 150 years will look at us and see that we're doing something grand here in the sense of education and lifelong learning, and that we're gathering together to really shake it up with all of that. I would like to think that they will look back on this and say that it's the start of something good. The book is Destiny of the Republic, A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and the Murder of a President by Candace Millard. Thank you.